Yes, the Tennessee Titans missed out on John Harbaugh, but Titans fans should not panic. And I'll tell you why on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's show, I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't panic that the Tennessee Titans missed out on John Harbaugh. There are a lot of good options, and there are reasons for concern with John Harbaugh that are playing out over the last 12 to 24 hours as well. Also, I'm going to tell you who my best remaining candidates are and who I think will be the finalists for the Tennessee Titans head coaching job next week. Finally, I'll tell you why you can be mad that John Harbaugh didn't sign with the Titans, but you cannot blame Amy Adams Strunk for that. Now, before we get into all of it, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there. Tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, you need to be one. Again, I think we're going to get the finalists for the Tennessee Titans head coaching job next week. Second round of interviews, and by next weekend, I think there's a good chance that we have a new Tennessee Titans head coach. If you want to stay up to date, as informed, and as entertained as you could possibly be, make sure that you stay locked in with the Locked On Titans podcast. But with that being said, again, whether you want to call it cope, whether you want to call it hope, whether you want to call it dope, I don't think that the Tennessee Titans should panic that they lost out on John Harbaugh. Now, number one, I've been telling you guys all week, I didn't think John Harbaugh was going to sign with the Tennessee Titans. I thought he was going to go to the New York Giants, so I'm not going to panic about something that played out exactly like I expected. And not only that, but as I have also said throughout the process, John Harbaugh was not the only good coach that was available. It's not like it's Harbaugh or bust for the Tennessee Titans. That's just not how I view this head coaching cycle. Like that's not what I feel about the candidate list that is out there. I think there are a lot of good candidates who could end up being great head coaches to get the Tennessee Titans back to winning football. And quite frankly, that's how I feel about a lot of stuff this offseason. Look at the NFL draft. I'm not going to be gung-ho. It's got to be this guy. And if they don't take this guy, I'm going to be angry. And that's exactly how I feel about this. I thought John Harbaugh was the best candidate available, but he's far from a perfect candidate. It's not like if the Titans hired John Harbaugh that it was an automatic guarantee that they would turn into a winning program once again. I think there are a lot of reasons for concern with John Harbaugh. Again, you call it cope, hope, dope, whatever you want. I think that if you're not being honest about the downsides of John Harbaugh, then you weren't fairly evaluating these head coaching candidates. Think about the realities here. He's 63 years old. A lot of you guys told me you didn't want Mike McCarthy because he's too old. Well, John Harbaugh is a year older than Mike McCarthy. Not only that, but he's not a coordinator. He was a special teams guy who came up under Andy Reid. He doesn't do offense. He doesn't do defense. And now look, John Harbaugh knows football. As I say all the time, Harbaugh has probably forgot more about football than I will ever know. I'm not going to get up here and tell you I know more about offense or defense than John freaking Harbaugh, a Super Bowl winning coach. But at the same time, amongst his peers in the NFL, John Harbaugh is not a schematic guru on offense or defense. And to me, that makes the margin for error a lot thinner. Because not only do you have to get your head coach right, but you also have to absolutely nail your coordinator positions because your head coach is not a schematic guy on either side of the ball. I mean, even Mike Vrabel was a former defensive coordinator who has experience doing scheme on defense. That's just not who John Harbaugh is. And when you have that kind of setup with your head coach, that means that if either of your coordinators are not good enough, you're screwed. And then you run into the same problem of if your coordinators are good enough, they're going to get poached, like Mike Macdonald, who went to the Seattle Seahawks after being the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator. And what happened to the Ravens defense? Fell off a cliff. You know what I mean? So to me, there are obvious downsides here with the age, with the lack of scheme Also, John Harbaugh, I have a lot of people, Giants fans are really trying to troll right now because they're shaking bottles and popping champagne because they got John Harbaugh. Well, great. I never thought the Titans were going to get John Harbaugh in the first place. But if you want to talk about all these great things with John Harbaugh, how can you not mention that he's blown more leads than any coach in the last 17 years in the NFL? Why don't you ask Gronk about that? Oh, no, we don't want to ask AI about which head coach has blown the most leads in the NFL. No, you don't want to do that? Okay, all right, fair enough. Now, let me say this. The biggest concern with John Harbaugh, and I talked about it on the show, is he going to bring Todd Monken with him as the offensive coordinator? Now, I made a joke on Twitter about the Titans are going to get John Harbaugh and Todd Monken and keep Denard Wilson and bring Derrick Henry back. And the reality is that was tongue-in-cheek. I was having fun. It was a joke, okay? But Todd Monken is a concern. And you're already seeing people around the NFL, tape watchers, like a guy like Nate Tice, one of the smartest football people in the media, period, breaks down the film. Dad was a former NFL head coach, Mike Tice, coach for the Vikings. And he's like, oh no. Look away, Giants fans. So these Giants fans can be all happy about John Harbaugh, but now you got to deal with Todd Monken as your offensive coordinator. And I'm sorry, I never was interested in Monken as a head coach. I didn't like Todd Monken as an offensive coordinator. I've been anti-Todd Monken for years, okay? Think about what Todd Monken did with Derrick Henry against the Baltimore Ravens. Would be in the playoffs right now. Well, maybe they would have lost in round one, but they would have made the playoffs if Todd Monken wasn't a fool and kept Derrick Henry off the field for 12 and a half minutes as they blew that lead to the New England Patriots. So we're talking about a guy, and everybody would say, oh, Todd Monken got an MVP season out of Lamar Jackson. True, but is Greg Roman a great offensive coordinator? He got an MVP season out of Lamar Jackson. It's absolutely fair to say Todd Monken wasn't so great that he got Lamar an MVP. Lamar Jackson is so great that he got an MVP. And he got an MVP before Todd Monken, and likely he might get one after as well. Let's stop pretending that Todd Monken made Lamar Jackson who he is. That's cope. That's cope. Get out of here with that. So, and all these Giants fans too, they want to say, oh, he picked Jackson Dart over Cam Ward. He picked Jackson Dart over Cam Ward. It's everything else that is in the Giants' favor. Listen, if you want to talk about Jackson Dart and Cam Ward, I think Cam Ward's better. I think Cam Ward's going to be a better player. The NFL thought Cam Ward was better. They got drafted 24 picks apart. So there's the proof in the pudding. But let me say this. Cam and Dart may be equal in John Harbaugh's mind. He may like Cam Ward even a little bit more. But the Giants have a better left tackle, a real wide receiver one, two better running backs, a better defensive line. They just have a better roster with a richer owner in New York City with more history. Everybody wants to boil it down to John Harbaugh picked Jackson Dart over Cam Ward, when in reality, it's everything else that is an advantage for the Giants. The quarterbacks might be the only thing that are fair and even, and that could be an advantage for the Titans. So just the whole conversation around the John Harbaugh thing, there's just no need to panic. Like I've said, there are a lot of good candidates, and I think there are a lot of candidates out there that can turn the Titans around. And who do I think they are? I'm going to tell you what my current ranking of the available head coaches is, and I'm going to tell you who I think will be finalists for the Tennessee Titans head coaching job this week. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by the Ultimate QB. All right? Have you ever wished that you could become a pro quarterback that got drafted first overall, maybe to the Tennessee Titans? Well, now is your chance. There's a mobile game that's just for you. It's called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number one draft pick quarterback. You sign contracts. You train upgrade yourself. You build chemistry with your teammates. You give input to your GM on roster moves. You can actually play games in 2D and rise through the ranks to be a pro football legend. You'll deal with the ups and downs of a QB career, from rookie nerves to playoff drama. The Ultimate QB app is totally free to play, has no ads, and it works 100% offline. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or just search Ultimate QB in your app store. I've got a special offer for you guys as well. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, that's LOCKEDON in all caps, in the Ultimate QB game store, and you're going to get a free boost to start your career. It's the Ultimate QB football legend, QB1. It's your legacy. Today's episode is also brought to you by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're the #1 rated meal service by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, recipe ease. Meals come ready to fit your schedule, 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, quick lunches. It saves time and money. Home Chef customers actually save an average of $86 per month on groceries. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box. You get free shipping and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. Once again, that's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Once again, that's homechef.com/lockedon. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about why Titans fans should not panic about John Harbaugh. There are a lot of good options still remaining. What are those options? I'm going to give you my best remaining head coaches and who I think the finalists for the Tennessee Titans head coaching job will ultimately be. Also, I'm going to tell you at the end of the show, well, you guys got to stop blaming Amy Adams Strunk for everything. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But with that being said, thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. But my top candidate on the board right now is the top candidate on the NFL's board. And I truly do believe he will be the next head coach that gets hired. And it's Kevin Stefanski, the former head coach from the Cleveland Browns. Now, I know there's a lot of pushback about Stefanski. I understand why. Things didn't go great all the time in Cleveland. It's the Cleveland Browns. All right? But at the end of the day, Kevin Stefanski is a younger, offensive guy who had some success with the worst franchise in NFL history. The worst franchise in NFL history, well, since they came back. The Browns actually won a bunch back in the 1950s. Look up Otto Graham if you don't know who that is. A little bit of a football historian, I have to admit. Otto Graham, one of the most underrated players of all time. But since the Browns came back to Cleveland, they have been the worst franchise in the NFL with a bullet, not even close. And Kevin Stefanski took them to the playoffs twice. He did it with a young Baker Mayfield. He did it with an old Joe Flacco. And then the Browns made the worst trade in NFL history for Deshaun Watson, killed the roster, and ruined their team. And then they pushed Stefanski out and kept the GM who made the worst trade in NFL history. Kevin Stefanski is going to get a job. Kevin Stefanski is the best head coach remaining on the market, period. He's going to go either to the Baltimore Ravens or the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think he's coming to Tennessee, if I'm honest with you. Because, like I've explained, I think Baltimore and Atlanta, if you're a coach that wants to win right away, Baltimore is the best opening in the NFL by far. And then if you want to win right away, Atlanta would be the next best option. And then I think the Titans are right after that. And if you're looking for a clean slate and you have a little bit more patience and you don't need to win right away, you can have a year to continue to build, then I would say the Titans are better than the Falcons. But that's really an beauty in the eye of the beholder type deal. But Stefanski is for sure my number one option. Now, my number two option now was my three for a while. My number two option continues to be Mike McCarthy. I just don't understand how there are people out there who liked John Harbaugh but don't like Mike McCarthy. I can't quite get that to compute. You liked John Harbaugh, but you don't like Mike McCarthy. I don't really understand how that could happen, because at the end of the day, Harbaugh is an older coach. He's 63 years old. Well, Mike McCarthy's 62. So you can't say that Mike McCarthy's too old, because that doesn't make any sense. You can't say, well, John Harbaugh has a Super Bowl. Well, so does Mike McCarthy. You can't say, well, John Harbaugh is a winning coach. Well, John Harbaugh has a 620 winning percentage, and Mike McCarthy has a 619 winning percentage. They're off by 1,000th of a point. Experience, 16 years as a head coach for John Harbaugh, 17 for Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is 11-11 in playoffs in his career. Harbaugh is only 12-10. Division titles, Harbaugh has 5. Mike McCarthy has 7. And again, Super Bowls, they're tied 1 for 1. So literally anything that you want to say about John Harbaugh is basically true for Mike McCarthy. So unless you hate Mike McCarthy and John Harbaugh, then sure, you don't like either of them. That's perfectly fine. But you can't be in my comments or in my mentions talking about, oh, I like John Harbaugh, I don't like Mike McCarthy. It's illogical. And then you add in the fact that Mike McCarthy is an offensive guy. He does have a scheme speciality. And he got the absolute best out of Aaron Rodgers. Mike McCarthy took over for Green Bay in 2006. Rodgers was drafted in 2005. So he developed Aaron Rodgers into a multi-time MVP, a Super Bowl champion. And what did Rodgers do without him? He won some more MVPs with Matt LaFleur, but he never got close to winning a Super Bowl again. Not only that, but you look at his time in Dallas. He developed Dak Prescott into one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. And I got to tell you guys, if you're somebody who doesn't think that Dak Prescott is good at football, you don't know football. Dak Prescott is a very good quarterback. He's one of the top 10, top 12 at minimum quarterbacks in the NFL. And if you don't see that, I'm sorry. Again, it's a litmus test for me. Do you think Draymond Green is good at basketball? If you say no, I don't respect your basketball opinion. You don't understand all of the ins and outs and the gears that turn with a professional basketball game. Is Dak Prescott a good NFL quarterback? If you say no, I'm sorry. I don't think that you know football very well. It's just that simple. Dak Prescott's a very good quarterback. And during his time in Dallas, Mike McCarthy led the Dallas Cowboys to 3 straight 12-win seasons. How can a Titans fan who just saw this team go 3-14 back-to-back tell me that 3 12-win seasons wasn't good enough in Dallas? Like, how is that even possible? That doesn't even make sense. And here's this for you. In his last year in Dallas, Dak Prescott got hurt and only played in 8 games. His previous 3 years in Dallas, first in points scored, fourth in points scored, first in points scored. 2 out of the 3 years with Dak Prescott healthy, they were first in points scored. Do you want a good offense? Do you want Cam Ward to play well? Do you want the Titans to be exciting and score points? Mike McCarthy is the man for you. Look at yards. 1st, 11th, 5th. Again, 12 wins all 3 years. So you're telling me that a 12-win season with the most points scored in the NFL would be bad for Cam Ward and the Titans? You would. Oh, what if they don't go to the Super Bowl? I'm sorry, the Titans just went 3-14 back-to-back years. If they won 12 games and scored the most points in the NFL, again, I'm dancing in the streets. What are we talking about here? I use this analogy, but you can't be a hobo on the street and say, oh, I don't want that free cheeseburger. I think a steak's going to come along. Take the cheeseburger. Maybe the steak still comes along after all anyway, but 1 in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. Okay? So Mike McCarthy, my number 2, with a bullet. Him and Stefanski are by far the best options. Okay? And then after that, I go to Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is my next best candidate for the Tennessee Titans. I continue to say this. I had somebody say online, and I hate to always bring up the online conversation, but it's good to, because you guys have your arguments, you have your thoughts, you have your opinions, and I like to find a way to maybe address those opinions and those concerns that you have, and often going off what some people say and their opinions online are going to be opinions that you guys share. So I like to incorporate, that's my way of incorporating your opinions into the show. But I saw somebody say, what did Robert Saleh ever do in New York? He never did anything. Anybody just says he looks like a leader. They never say anything that he actually did. You want to know something definitive that Robert Saleh did in New York? The last 17 games that Robert Saleh was the head coach for the New York Jets, they were number 1 in EPA per play on defense. The next 17 games after they fired Robert Saleh, they were last. So they were number 1 in the NFL with Robert Saleh. And then immediately when he leaves, they're last. If that is not a coaching impact, I don't know what is. And again, Robert Saleh may be a defensive guy, but he could bring his best friend, Mike McDaniel, as his OC. He could bring somebody from Sean McVay, somebody from Kyle Shanahan, somebody from Matt LaFleur. That clique of coaches in the NFL. So, and also, Robert Saleh commands a room and gets the best out of his players. I just gave you that stat from the Jets. He went 7-10 back-to-back with the New York Jets. I talked about the Browns being the worst franchise. The only team that can get into the ring and slug it out with the Browns for that title is the Jets. So, we are talking about coaches who went to the worst organizations in the NFL and were able to get production out of players. Again, 7-10 in back-to-back years. And this is without a quarterback at all. He had Aaron Rodgers off the Achilles. Aaron Rodgers popped the Achilles. And Zach Wilson. So, Robert Saleh is a leader of men. He gets the most out of his defense. He is a genius schematic guy on one side of the ball, which is important to me. And he has access to some of the best offensive candidates that you could find, which lessens the concern around having to replace your offensive coordinator with a defensive-minded head coach. I'm not as concerned about that with Robert Saleh. So, Kevin Stefanski, Mike McCarthy, and Robert Saleh are my top 3, and then there's a big drop-off. And from there, I would go with Cliff Kingsbury, who, again, the best possible option for Cam Ward at quarterback. Ran the air raid system with Patrick Mahomes in college. Got the best rookie season in the history of quarterbacks out of Jaden Daniels. Yes, his teams fall a little bit at the end of the year, but I have to believe that Cliff Kingsbury learned from that. So there are more concerns with Kingsbury. He is significantly lower than my top 3, but he would be my next one. And then Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator from the Rams, and then Mike McDaniel, and then after that I'd put Jeff Hafley, Jesse Minter. So that's my list of candidates. But now I want to tell you guys who I think the finalists for the Tennessee Titans head coaching job. Those are my favorite head coaches. Now I'm going to tell you who I actually think becomes a finalist for the Tennessee Titans this upcoming week. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL playoffs are in full swing, and there's nothing like being at the game. The crowd noise, the energy, cheering alongside other fans. Watching at home is great, but being in the stadium hits different. The frustrating part, of course, though, is getting tickets, waiting in queues, dealing with logins, and then the prices always jump at checkout. But that's why the Game Time app is giving the advantage back to fans. It's a hack for unlocking amazing NFL tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Game Time has the best features in the industry. It's not even close. Panoramic view from your seat so you know what you're looking at. You get upfront pricing. So all of your fees are included, so the price you see is exactly what you pay. You get the Game Time guarantee as well. I bought NBA, WNBA, MLB, concert, comedy, NFL tickets, all on Game Time. It's the best experience you're going to find. So take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today and get back to being there live. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, the divisional round is here. It's the best weekend of football all season long, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts so you can apply it to the bets that you like most. The boosts give you more juice on the bets that you already like instead of forcing you to bet something new. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. I did my Madman's Moneymaker, my best bets of the weekend, over on the Locked On NFL podcast. Check that out, but make your picks and then apply your profit boost to get even bigger payouts while the playoffs are rolling. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about why you shouldn't panic about John Harbaugh picking the New York Giants. We talked about my favorite head coaches that are remaining. Now, I want to talk about who I think actually advances to the next round, because the reality is my favorite head coaches aren't going to be all of the finalists. That's just not how the list is going to work. Now, before I dive in, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. But with that being said, I think that the kickoff of the Titans' second round of interviews starts with Mike McCarthy on Saturday. Mike McCarthy has not met with the Tennessee Titans yet. He has an in-person interview scheduled for Saturday. It is my opinion that the Tennessee Titans gave him a bye. Like, think about it like the playoffs. You know, the first round of candidates, the Titans have met with, 18 different people, or requested 18 different people. He was one of them, but they know who Mike McCarthy is. Mike McCarthy doesn't need to do a virtual interview. Maybe they did a phone call. Hey, Mike, this is Mike. We're interested in you. When can you come in? I could probably make it next Saturday. All right, sounds good. We'll see you then. Hey, Mike, are you interested? Yeah, I'm interested. Okay, great. That's all we needed to hear. We'll see you next Saturday. All right, great. That's what I think happened with Mike McCarthy. The Titans don't need to do multiple interviews with Mike McCarthy, okay? He's been one of the better coaches in the NFL over the last 15, 16 years. He's got a pelt on the wall with a Super Bowl, all the stuff that I mentioned to you in the previous segment. Mike McCarthy's interview is basically a finalist interview. And I think that's where the Titans start, because next week, and I've been consistent with this, I think that the Tennessee Titans will have a head coach by the end of next weekend. So the 23rd on Friday, 24th on Saturday, 25th on Sunday, 26th on Monday. I think they'll have their head coach by then. And if they don't, then I think it means that the Titans are going to hire somebody who's still in the playoffs. But if the Titans are going to hire one of these guys who are available right now, I think the hire will happen by the end of next weekend. Not tomorrow, or Friday the 16th, Saturday the 17th, Sunday the 18th. No. Next weekend, the 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th. We'll have an answer by then. And again, if we don't, that means that the Titans are going to hire somebody who's still in the playoffs, which kind of narrows down the conversation. But who are going to be the finalists for the Tennessee Titans? Again, Mike McCarthy kicking things off. He gets a bye week into the finalist round. But I think Robert Saleh will be a finalist. I think San Francisco loses this weekend as well, so he should be able to have an in-person interview. He's supposed to interview with the Titans on Sunday. Their game is on Saturday night. So he's going to interview with the Titans on Sunday, and that is no matter whether San Francisco wins or not. He's going to interview on Sunday. He's allowed to at that point because it's going to be past, or it's going to be the 19th, okay? But anyways, Chris Shula from the Los Angeles Rams. Whether they win or lose, I think Chris Shula is going to end up being a finalist. A lot of these guys are retread head coaches. Because that's the Titans want a leader. They want experience. So obviously, I think the list is going to be a majority of guys who are previous head coaches. But I think Chris Shula is the one guy who will get an opportunity with the Titans who wasn't a previous head coach, for balance sake. Outside of McCarthy, Saleh, and Shula, the reality is, I think that Matt Nagy and Arthur Smith will be finalists. It pains me to say it. I hate those names. I'm going to get on here and call it a complete disaster if they hire either of those guys. What a joke that would be. Do you guys remember when the Tennessee Volunteers, and I know a lot of you guys are Vols fans from Tennessee, do you remember when the Volunteers hired Greg Schiano and the fans bullied them out of it? That's what we have to do to the Titans if they hire Matt Nagy. If the Titans hire Matt Nagy, I'm going to try to organize a protest. Like, I'm literally going to go to Nashville, try to stir up interest and protest outside of the building. Like, they cannot hire Matt Nagy. We can't stand for it, guys. We cannot allow them to do that to us. I can't take it. I can't accept it. And Arthur Smith would be even worse. But regardless of my thought, both of those guys are previous head coaches. Both of those guys are offensive side of the ball. Both of those guys have great connections to the organization. The reality is the reality. Whether I like them or I don't like them, I'm not Mike Borgonzi. I'm not making the hire. It's not up to me. Nagy and Smith will be finalists. I firmly believe that. Now, I think that Mike McDaniel will be a finalist as well. He had an in-person interview with the Titans this week. I do believe he will be a finalist. And Kevin Stefanski should be a finalist. The Titans have already met with Stefanski in person, and I think he'll be one of the first coaches that they bring in for a second interview. The thing is, again, I think Stefanski is going to take the Falcons or the Baltimore Ravens job. So that if he goes to one of those places before the Titans start the interview process in the second round, then obviously he's not going to be a finalist. But if he doesn't take one of those jobs by then, I think he will be a finalist. And he better be. He's the best coach on the market right now. What are we doing? If the Ravens are looking at him. Now, the easy counter to that is, well, Tyler, the Ravens interviewed Matt Nagy. I'm sorry, there is a clear, obvious PR push for Matt Nagy right now being orchestrated by the Kansas City Chiefs so that they don't have to renew his contract and look like bad guys. But that's who I think will be the finalists: Stefanski, McCarthy, Saleh, Shula, Nagy, McDaniels, and Smith. And I think that next week we should have a more official list of finalists for the Titans. Now, the last thing I want to say here before we go is, as is the case all the time now, whenever something doesn't go the Titans' way, people start to hate on Amy Adams Strunk. And I don't mean to be a shill for the owner. I don't know her. They don't pay me. As a matter of fact, the Titans organization does not like me because I'm too critical of the organization. Okay? I do not have a lot of fans in the building in Nashville because I will tell you how it is. I will tell you that the Titans got used by the New York Giants when other mouthpieces for the organization are trying to tell you, no, that's not the case. They didn't get used. He just picked the Giants. He just decided to go with okay. All right. There are some people out there who you simply cannot trust because it's clear that they're a mouthpiece for a coach or for the organization. They are literally a PR person pretending to be a reporter. Okay? So, with that in mind, just because the Titans got used as leverage against the Giants doesn't mean that Amy Adams Strunk messed up. You can't blame her for not signing John Harbaugh. She had the jet fueled up. They were ready to go on Thursday in the private jet to go see John Harbaugh at his house. She was literally going to do whatever it took. And it's not like Amy Adams Strunk did. I saw somebody say, oh, well, they were never going to pay Harbaugh $20 million a year. They're not even going to pay somebody $10 million a deal. Again, just more boohoo, crybaby, little kid on the floor of the grocery store. I didn't get a candy bar. Amy sucks. I hate you, Mom. I hate you forever. That's how you guys sound when you cry about Amy Adams Strunk in these situations. She had the jet fueled up. You don't think that she knew that John Harbaugh wanted $20 million a year? Yeah, maybe she wasn't going to give him 20, but you don't even go there if you aren't willing to pay 18 or get close. It's not like they were going to show up to John Harbaugh after he got offered $20 million from the Giants and say, we'll only give you 10, pick us. It's irrational. Look, Amy Adams Strunk deserves her blame for the Mike Vrabel fiasco. No doubt about it. She shouldn't have fired Mike Vrabel, shouldn't have hired Ran Carthon, and Ran Carthon shouldn't have hired Callahan. That's all fair criticism. But I will remind you that this team was in the gutter before Amy Adams Strunk hired John Robinson, Mike Mularkey, and then Mike Vrabel. So you can't say that she's incapable of getting the team back to respectability when she already did it before. And you absolutely cannot blame Amy Adams Strunk for John Harbaugh choosing to go to the Giants, a much better job, when she literally had the jet fueled up, ready to go, and was going to go there and give him a great offer. So you could blame Amy Adams Strunk for stuff, but absolutely can't blame Amy Adams Strunk for the Titans not getting John Harbaugh. It's childish. At the end of the day, you're just throwing a tantrum, in my opinion. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.